Well, the Ford government tabling its fall economic statement yesterday, and a proposed provincial infrastructure bank with an initial $3 billion in public funding. That's the biggest ticket item coming out of it. The government plans to spend $185 billion in the next 10 years building roads, transit, and hospitals. Now, here are some of the other highlights. The province is investing $100 million more into the Invest Ontario Fund, bringing it to a total of $500 million. The money is used to attract companies to our province. The province also investing $200 million to launch what it calls a new Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund. The province is also squirreling away billions of dollars to help it respond to any surprise expenses. Ontario plans to join the federal government's excise tax on vaping, all in an effort to fight the growing issue. And joining us live for more on this morning is the Toronto Region Board of Trade President and CEO Giles Gerson. Giles, thanks so much for being here this morning. Good to see you.
Great to be here.
What did you make overall, the Board of Trade make overall of yesterday's sort of economic update there?
I think we thought it was a good statement. Fall economic statements are not budgets, right? They tend to be a bit more the tweaks here and there, and I think that's what they did. It wasn't a big event, but it was an important one, I think. And the reason, I think, is that all the things you just mentioned are efforts to attract investment into the province, grow the economy, make us more competitive. We've fallen behind over the last couple of decades. You know, we've had huge population growth here, which has been great, but we haven't really built the infrastructure around it. And I think in our manufacturing sector, which is our most important sector, we really haven't seen the investment in advanced technology and productivity that we've needed to see. I think what this government's tried to do is really bolster that, and this fall economic statement does more of that.
Toronto, of course, is, I mean, people don't like to admit to it, but Toronto is the economic engine of Ontario and certainly most of the country. Was there anything specific in there that you were looking for that was top of your list? You said, they've noticed that, they're putting that in really for Toronto specifically.
Well, you know, I think the new Ontario Infrastructure Bank will have played a significant role here. I mean, you talk about what we just said. You know, the City of Toronto and the GTA have grown enormously, 2.5 million people over the last 20 years, and not much infrastructure built. So we're kind of choking on that growth, and we have more growth coming. So I think what the Infrastructure Bank can do, and you gave us the number, $185 billion in anticipated investment in new infrastructure over the next number of years. That's a lot of money. And so what the government's trying to do is say, how can we get private sector investment to shoulder some of that burden? Because taxpayers can't do it all, but we need the investment. And so, so the investment bank, what the Infrastructure Bank will do is bring in private capital, probably from pension funds and other institutional investors, to shoulder some of that burden. That's a significant thing. We know we need significant transit build here. We're getting it, but it's going to be very costly. On frankly, energy infrastructure, when you think about the grid, it needs to grow massively, very costly.
It certainly does. Another thing, Giles, that's interesting is what still appears to be on the table as Toronto is dealing with this potentially $1.5 billion hole in its budget and future deficit issues, is the potential uploading of the Gardner and Don Valley Parkway. We didn't hear about that yesterday, but how significant do you think that could be for the City of Toronto to sort of get those massive pieces of infrastructure off the books?
Well, you've raised a really interesting question around, you know, when you look at that fall economic statement, you realize that there is something big coming, we assume, in terms of the province helping to resolve the huge budget deficit that the City of Toronto has. And so what we're assuming is that money is being parked for an agreement between the City of Toronto and the provincial government, hopefully the federal government as well, to reallocate costs away from the City of Toronto to the federal and provincial government where that makes sense. And the Gardner and the Don Valley are two highways, essentially, and they're the only highways really probably in North America that are run by cities, by a city. And so moving that, if we could move that expenditure to the provincial government where I think it belongs, that will be a new cost for the province. So they've got a budget for that. We didn't see it because the deal hasn't been done, but you would expect to see that being salted away.
Yeah, I was certainly watching closely for that. You know, Giles, in the meantime, you know, we've spoken to your predecessor a lot throughout the pandemic, Jan De Silva, about, you know, just the City of Toronto coming back, recovering from the pandemic, whether it's, you know, the financial district, downtown office spaces filling up and that sort of thing. How is Toronto doing as it rebounds, as we come out of the pandemic in terms of, I mean, it seems busy, construction, traffic seems busy, all of that, but in overall state of the city now, how would you sort of assess where we are?
Not good.
Not good.
I mean, I think when you look at the downtown core, it's still only about 50% of occupancy in the building, in the office buildings that we have here. I mean, the subway, it's doing better, and that's good. But really, overall, it's still only about 70% of the traffic that we had before the pandemic, and that means fare box revenue is down, and so you've got a colossal deficit in the TTC, which isn't sustainable. So no, I mean, I think this city has lots to do to improve its infrastructure. Back to the infrastructure bank, because we haven't done it over the last 25, 30 years, what we should have done. And so I think this is why governments are moving now quickly to see if they can speed up the rate of infrastructure.
I can see why you're so keen on that infrastructure bank overall.
Yeah, no,
Giles Gerson, good to meet you. Thanks for speaking to us
Mike.
this morning.
Great.
Good to see you. Okay, thank you very much.